Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Sword Art Online light novel review. This one is going to be for Sword Art Online Progressive Volume 1, the second half, which covers Floor 2 of Aincrad. In the previous video I covered the first two sections of this book, which are the section that covers Floor 1, plus the little interlude piece which focuses on Argo and the reason why she has the whiskers on her face. I will say before I start to review the second half that interlude actually plays a really nice role as kind of transitioning from floor 1 to floor 2, because the whiskers play a role obviously in the interlude, plus a fairly important role with regards to what happens towards the end of floor 2. The whiskers is part of a quest where the whiskers stay on you until you break this rock in the game, and after you do that, the whiskers go away and you get the martial arts skill. So that's what happens there. But yeah, floor 2 of Aincrad is a kind of desert, kind of rocky terrain like area, and if there's a theme that the book seems to hint at, it's that all of the monsters on the floor are kind of bulls. They're all sort of cow-like, Tauros-like. All of the bosses in the at the end that they fight are giant kind of minotaur-like things and stuff like that. So that's what you get from here. They're all like that. So that's definitely the theme that they go on from here. And when they refer back to it in the future progressive novels, it's definitely all about the whole kind of cow theme going on here. So there's that, the kind of bull cow theme. But yeah, what progressive does going forward, where basically each book focuses on one floor, is that you get more development on Kirito and Asuna's relationship. You learn obviously about the kind of the terrain of that floor, what it's about, the theme of the floor. You get some sort of a plot going on with new characters, whether that be NPCs in the game, part of the story of Aincrad, or what, and you usually get introduced to a new mechanic of the game of Aincrad, the SAO. For floor 2, that's basically the crafting system of the game, specifically blacksmithing, upgrading your weapons, armor, that sort of thing. That's what they focus on here. Plus, there's a bunch of other actually plot points going on here, such as further developing and setting up the first few guilds in the game. Basically, the Dragon Knights led by Lind and the Aincrad Liberation Squad led by Kabao, which obviously we know where that goes eventually. We saw a little bit of him in the anime, but we don't know a massive amount about the Dragon Knights, though I think we do see them in an episode or two. But setting up the kind of rivalry between those two and stuff like that, we also get further development on what exactly Kirito's status is in the game at this point in time. The players from the boss raid for the first floor know him as a beater, but in general, what does that do for him on the floor? So you get that. And then, obviously, as I said, the blacksmithing quest links into this upgrading scam that's going on, and that becomes basically the main plot of the book before the boss battle for floor 2. So there's a lot going on here, and I think it's pretty well done. So, like, in terms of very quick review, I'd say really good read. Like, floor 2 right now in progressive is the first floor that we don't know anything about. So this is the only place you're going to hear about that, and that's in progressive volume 1. So I definitely highly recommend you guys pick up this book to learn about what goes on floor 2. I'd say the main thing to talk about first is actually why Kirito and Asuna are still together actually on this floor, because I think from the anime and the other light novels that aren't progressive, you definitely get this idea that the beater scene from the end of the first two episodes of the anime, where he basically he apparently turns evil, reveals himself as a beater. We know as the audience that is to kind of separate himself from the rest of the beta testers, so that the other players won't turn on all of the beta testers, they just turn on him, and that is to help the overall high level player population of the game. And we see that Asuna and Egil kind of see what he's done, but we still get the impression that when he leaves, he is going off on his own because of that line he says to Asuna that like you can go, there's only so far you can go in this game as a solo player. If the time comes and a guild offers you a place, accept it. You need to be part of a group. You know, that little speech that he gives, you think that's their kind of parting words for a long time, and it isn't like obviously they would meet each other at boss raids and stuff like that, but really, as far as we're concerned, like is it like those episodes? Like I think it's episode like 5 and 6 or something like that. The Murder in the Safe Zone two-parter from the anime. We kind of see that as like the first step in terms of them becoming much more closer. Whereas Progressive kind of, I don't think it really retcons anything. It just kind of adds to stuff we didn't know, tells us stuff we didn't know. In that, no, they actually team up for a good few floors. Asuna is aware of what he just did there. Like, she sees exactly what he did and doesn't see him any differently because of it. She just teams up with him anyway. And they definitely do hint that going forward, Kirito is aware of the impact that the kind of what it will say about Asuna, the fact that she's sticking around him, who kind of has this bad reputation, and that he's sort of worried that if they stick together too long, that they'll always be recognized as this duo that are kind of like the beater duo, and that will, he's fine accepting that being on his own playing solo, but he knows the potential that she has as a player and doesn't want to kind of bring her down with him. Um, so that's definitely something that they hint at here and definitely touch on more in the the future progressive novels 2 and 3, the ones that are out in English right now. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on. Just like when exactly is the moment in progressive when they do split up? Because we know from the episodes of the anime in between the first two episodes and the Murder in the Safe Zone that Kirito spends a lot of the floors on his own primarily. Where stuff like the Moonlit Black Cats incident happens, him saving Silica, the adventure with Lisbeth, a lot of this stuff happens when he's on his own. They don't stick around together for that long. I'm really eager to see where exactly this series goes in terms of the moment when they do split up. I think Kirito is going to just realize at some stage that needs to happen. But I'll talk more about that when we get to future parts of Progressive going forward. In terms of their relationship here, you do just get that transition from them being kind of forced to partner up for the first floor boss battle to actually becoming somewhat of friends. There's some very nice moments here as you can sort of begin to see the impact that Kirito has had on Asuna already. He's gradually beginning to show her that the virtual world isn't so bad, and you can see her beginning to form little attachments to things as the kind of time goes on. In progressive, in the first floor, the first half of the book, basically coming to the first floor, you get this idea that she just bought weapons because she needs a weapon, and she doesn't really care about them. She's fine with them breaking. But with her new weapon, the one that Kirito picked out for her before the boss battle on the first floor, she has really developed somewhat of an attachment to it. So when a plot point in this book happens in that she goes to get it upgraded but it breaks, she's actually really upset by it. And she kind of needs Kirito to kind of comfort her because it is this one thing that she's kind of put some sort of attachment into in the game. And that's a big step for her as far as we're aware right now. And that the whole kind of theme that they kind of set up for this book is that with Asuna, it's like, as it says here, there's no way to beat this game. The only difference is when and where you die. This whole idea that she's kind of willing to die once she's always herself and doesn't have to compromise and stuff like that. You're definitely seeing development here from her being with Kirito, and for him, the reason he's continuing on the partnership is because one, like he's okay with having a beautiful girl as his kind of partner in the game right now, but also because he can see the potential in her and he knows that there's a lot he can teach her being a beta tester and her being relatively new to MMOs. And there's a few times where he's impressed, and you can see that the few days that they are apart in between the end of the whole beater scene and them meeting up again in the second floor, she has been doing like research and stuff like that. She's been studying up MMO terms, so she is a little bit more knowledgeable as you see her progress around with Kirito here. But yeah, there's some nice moments as they go along. Like they eat food together. They have this competition to defeat the most monsters. To collect upgrade materials. Asuna wins by like one monster because they very established that she's the faster player, but Kirito's stronger, and like just in terms of defeating monsters, it holds him back a little bit. And just little moments like that. You get the little teases that, like, eventually it's going to be a romantic relationship just because of where it does go. But, like, little hints like that, they refer back to the incident with Asuna, Argo, and him in the bathroom and stuff like that. And there's some nice back and forth between the two. It's definitely a good book in terms of their relationship. But as I said, the key aspect of this book is the upgrading and the blacksmithing. They explain how that whole thing works. And basically the way they explain it is that weapons in Aincrad have a set number of upgrade attempts to them. So Kirito explains that his anneal blade, which you can see in this picture here, has 8 possible upgrade attempts. So it starts off as an anneal blade plus 0. The max it can possibly be is plus 8, and that's after 8 successful upgrade attempts and no failures. But if there are a couple of failures here and there, it could be maxed out at plus 4, plus 5, whatever. And they kind of explain that a blacksmithing upgrade attempt can fail, and if it does, what can happen is either the thing either stays as it is, it's just wasted upgrade attempt, and the sword isn't as max as it can be. There's the potential that it actually loses 1 stat point, so it goes from whatever it is, plus 4 to plus 3. And later on in the book, as a kind of big plot point, they explain that if you try to upgrade a weapon that has already used up all its upgrade attempts, the weapon actually breaks. So you get a lot of these details. That's the mechanic of the game they focus on a lot in this book, and it's really well developed as the thing progresses, because it becomes this huge mystery. Because once Kirito and Asuna meet up, they kind of settle on the fact that, okay, Kirito's aware that the boss is pretty tough. You need high defensive gear, high attack weapons. You need your gear as upgraded as possible. So they both decide that they want to upgrade their weapons. Obviously, this is where the competition to defeat all the monsters comes, because Asuna needs more upgrade materials. They go back, and she goes to upgrade her weapon first. Before this, they went to have a cake. It was so expensive that it gave them a luck bonus and stuff like that. So she basically has a kind of 97 or something like that % chance of success. She wants to get her wind fleuret from like plus 4 to plus 5. But what happens is that she knows that she's got a good few attempts left on her sword. But what happens is that it breaks. At this point in time, as far as both of them are aware, there is no potential for an upgrade attempt to result in breakage. Later on, it's revealed that it can't happen unless, obviously, you've wasted all your upgrade attempts, which isn't the case here. So it's this really shocking moment. As I said, this is where the moment of Asuna being really upset at her sword breaking, and kind of needing Kirito to kind of comfort her and stuff like that. They kind of then explain that, like, if you want to continue on the kind of soul of your sword, you can actually melt down your sword into ingots and then have it made into, as like, make that the heart of your next sword as a way to kind of continue it on. But it's broken if you start to use a boss upgrade, a boss drop weapon and stuff like that. They really delve into the whole weapon upgrade process in this game really well. But Asuna's sword breaks, and Kirito's instantly really suspicious of this, and this is where the mystery comes in. He starts to investigate this blacksmith, who's a character named Nezu. Eventually, what happens is it's revealed that Nezu is a part of this guild called the Legend Braves, who all named themselves after famous warriors. It's revealed that they're doing this upgrade scam where Nezu somehow manages to use his blacksmithing skill to break someone's weapon. He then offers to pay them, pay them back, and he gives them a spare weapon, but it's not as good. Either way, they're making a profit on this, a big profit. They're getting really high level weapons and giving people back lower level weapons, and it's this big scam. And eventually Kirito figures it out, and it's this really kind of clever use of a bunch of mechanics of the games and skills and stuff like that. And what it comes down to is that it's Nezu, who's a blacksmith, using a warrior skill related to swords called like quick swap, where you can like instantly, like really quickly switch a weapon, the weapon you have equipped with one in your storage. So he does this really quickly, and he replaces the weapon that someone's about to upgrade with a weapon that has already maxed out its upgrade attempts. So that's why it breaks. And then he just says, "Oh, sorry, I can't believe this happened." Keeps the weapon, sells it. The Legend Braves make their profit, because the Legend Braves are this group of players who are a few levels lower than the players on the front lines that participated in the first floor boss battle, but they really want to become a good guild. And so they come up with this scheme, and that's another plot point as well. Like, there's this mysterious person who comes up to the Legend Braves, this is how they explain it, and tell them about the upgrade scheme. They don't come up with it themselves, they use it, but it's because this mysterious person who asked for nothing in return, he just told them how to do this blacksmithing scam and then left. And I assume this is going to be a plot point as the progressive novels continue, and it's going to be revealed that this is one of the early members of Laughing Coffin or something like that. I really do think it's that. Or it could be one of the characters who makes his appearance in the next progressive novel, who we'll talk about when I review that. But just a lot of stuff going on here with this whole upgrading scam and stuff like that. Eventually, like, Kirito figures out that you can actually get the weapon that you thought was broken back because of this other mechanic whereby if you drop, or a monster makes you drop, or you just throw on the ground your equipped weapon, if you wait 3,600 seconds, the weapon then no longer is part of your inventory, and basically whoever took it or whoever picks it up, they now own that weapon, and you don't. It's different with a weapon that isn't equipped if you drop it. That there's only like a 60-second timer. So Kirito realizes that, like, I think 5 hours after Asuna's failed upgrade attempt, that, oh wait, this is it, and rushes to her room, barges in. A funny moment happens, where like he kind of, just before he enters the door, he's just like, I don't have much time, but is she dressed? And he goes in anyway, and he gets the sword back because he realizes that if you actually materialize all your items into the game world, it's going to be there and it will return it back. It's kind of a little bit game breaking in that it's a kind of cheat almost way to get your weapon back, because it materializes all your items into one spot. But it's under so many menus and it dumps all your items out that it's kind of a last resort type thing. But he gets it back, and you really see how kind of thankful Asuna is to get her sword back. But it all comes out. It all results basically in them then confronting Nezu. They figure out exactly everything, how it works. Kirito dresses up in disguise and figures out exactly how it works, outs him, and basically, so that the players don't revolt against this blacksmith and basically try to have him killed and stuff like this, they make a deal with him where he quits being a blacksmith and becomes a warrior to help the game progress. And he then explains to them that he's part of the Legend Braves, but he's the weakest player because he has this visual problem with like full dive technology where his depth perception isn't that well, so he can't use a sword that well, but he can use ranged weapons reasonably okay, because it's not so much reliant on like swinging a sword and making sure you hit someone between like this distance. It's like, they're there, I can hit them, and that's fine, so he can use ranged weapons okay. Kirito then gives him this rare weapon that he picked up, but it's kind of useless to Kirito, and asks him to go off to train. He basically tells Nezu to go off and do the Whiskers quest to get the martial arts skill. That's why the Interlude chapter is so important. And at this point, they all go out to do the boss raid, which is where the whole Lind and Kibao guild thing comes up. Earlier on in the book, Kirito and Asuna spy on these two guilds taking down the world boss, basically the boss that's kind of like the one outside the labyrinth before they get into the boss. So it's the kind of boss before the main boss type thing. And they witness basically Kibao and Lind fight over control of who's leading the battle. And it nearly results in people getting killed when it should have been a really easy battle. So before the actual boss raid, they flip a coin and it's decided that Lind is going to be the overall raid leader, and that sorts that out. And there's even some nice moments where like you think that Lind and Kibao must hate Kirito because of what happened with Diavel and stuff like that, him being a beater, but they're so eager to protect everyone and make sure no one dies that before they even go into the boss chamber, they give Kirito a chance to kind of update everyone on what exactly the boss is like, because he's the only beta tester in the party right now, and they have that happen. And it's a nice moment when he gets a chance to kind of show that he's not just the evil guy. He does want to help. He doesn't want anyone to die, and it just kind of it clears the air a little bit in that yes, he's still this guy who's primarily out for himself. He wants to get the best armor and equipment and stuff like that, but he doesn't want anyone to die. He's not selfish, sort of thing. So they just established his kind of role in the game at this point in time, Kirito. So that was nice. Boss battle takes up a lot of the book actually, and it's very detailed how in depth they go into with the battle, explaining that it seems initially like the boss battle is exactly the same way it was in the beta test, where it's two kind of Minotaur-like beasts, kind of, they say they're like Tauros, lords and general or something like that. One is double the size of the other one, but they're both basically bosses. And they established that, okay, Asuna and Kirito are on Eagle's team, while Lind and Kabao's multiple parties are taking on the main boss. Eagle, Kirito, and Asuna are going to take on the smaller boss. So this is all going fine. Kirito, after a few issues with paralysis and stuff like that, Kirito manages to get the last attack bonus on the small boss. And as they switch over, they realize that Kibao and Lind are about to defeat the main boss, when it triggers the arrival of the full game's actual boss, which they never knew about. And this other Minotaur Tauros type thing arrives that's twice the size of the beta test boss, and they're all shocked. It's really powerful. Kibao and Lind nearly get killed. Kirito and Asuna nearly get killed, just barely surviving. They're about to retreat when Nezu actually arrives at the battle with Argo. And what happens here is that it's explained that Argo actually did all the quests around the second floor to get information on the true boss, and she's arrived at the last moment to tell everyone what to do. And it kind of turns out that Nezu and him using the really weird weapon that Kirito gave to him is kind of crucial to defeating the boss, because it's this ranged weapon that's basically it's just a kind of a circular bladed weapon that you can throw, but it's not wasted. It kind of comes back to you, and using that, like, he hits him in the head and it kind of stuns him for a second, and this is the only chance they really have to win. It's a tough battle, but because of Nezu, they basically win. And, the boss battle goes fairly fine after that. No one dies, but it was the biggest change they've seen from the beta test so far. But that's not even the end of the book. Like, the last book basically ended immediately after the boss battle. Then you have the beater scene. With this one, what happens is that everyone suddenly turns on Nezu because they see him, the blacksmith, with all this great gear and stuff like that. He was really crucial in being the boss battle. And they see that he's friendly with the Legend Braves. And suddenly everyone's like, oh no, what's happened here? He admits to the whole upgrading scam, and everyone turns on Nezu. And basically, Kirito and Asuna are afraid that this is the first player killing that's about to happen, and it's going to be because of the anger of the lead group. That doesn't happen because the other Legend Braves do stand up for their friend, and they offer basically to give up all their really rare gear that they bought using the money they got from the scam, and give it to basically the victims of their crime and stuff like that. So it's this kind of trade where, like, okay, it seems fair enough, but ultimately the frontier players in the game are losing like 6 potential really strong players here because they're giving away all their gear and money. But it's kind of just a sign of like the kind of community in the game and what needs to be done at this point in time. It's a really tense scene because Nezu earlier on was considering committing suicide after he was found out, and you could see him here when he first admits to it. He's kind of accepting death, but his friend standing up for him kind of keeps him strong. And it's just a really kind of another kind of tense way to end one of these books, just showing that there's a lot of intensity going on here, because a lot of the reason they were so angry about this is because you know, what if someone had got this upgrade scam, lost their best weapon, and had to go into the boss battle with a lesser weapon and got killed? It would have made it all the worse. And really, only the fact that Nezu kind of stopped anyone from being killed is the only reason why, like, nothing worse happened. So, really cool book overall. I think it's really worth your time. Progressive Volume 1 overall, you know, being the biggest progressive book and biggest Sword Art Online novel so far, absolutely worth it. I think the first floor, the interlude chapter, and the second floor stuff are all really good. Definitely worth your time, especially the second floor stuff, because this book is the only place you're going to get that. I hope and I assume at some point it will be animated, but who knows when that will be. But anyway, that's been the review for Progressive Volume 1. Hopefully I'll get part 2 reread and be able to do that by next week or something like that. But for now, that's been the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.